Did Countryside Acres play a part in Russia changing its laws, changing its immigration laws? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. I'm Sam, an English guy who lives in provincial Russia, and I've been living in Russia for about 20 years. I've gone through all the stages of residency, from coming here on multiple visas and then going through temporary residency, permanent residency, and I'm now a Russian citizen. So I have knowledge on this subject, and today I'm going to talk to you about why I think the Countryside Acres played a part in Russia changing its migration laws. Now, I don't know if you know about the YouTube channel called Countryside Acres, a family from Canada who moved to Russia, and they moved to Russia with their 8 children and, well, a family of 10, and they actually have 1 child back home, and I didn't mention that in another video and someone took offense to it. So there's 11 of them altogether, but there's 10 of them here, and they moved to Russia about half a year ago now, I think, and they were an internet sensation. Massive family coming to Russia to basically start their life over, and they sold all their possessions, sold the farm they had in Canada and moved to Russia. What a story. And from the moment they arrived, it really was a massive sensation here. The media got behind them and their channel just literally exploded overnight, and now it's like a binge watch every day to find out what is new in their lives, what else is happening, what they're doing. And they're making progress so quickly, building a house. They're going to be, I'm sure within a year, they're going to be like probably Russian citizens, I guess. You know, that's how quickly everything's moving forward for them, and it's really interesting to watch their journey. But about 3 months ago, I watched a video on Countryside Acres where they were talking about having to leave Russia. They're going to have to leave Russia, and the cost they were going to have to incur by probably moving to Holland for a while, they were thinking, and they were saying it's going to cost about $6,000 each. They were saying something like that, and I don't know exactly, but they were really stressed out about this situation, and they were saying the reason is because they need to take the residency exam and they're not ready for it. Now, I falsely presumed that they just were not aware that they would have to take the residency exam when coming to Russia and applying for residency. I thought they can't have known, right? They've come to Russia, they've sold all their possessions, they sold their farm, everything they have in Canada, and they've moved to Russia, so they must have just not known. So I made a video. Well, to start with, I tried to reach out to them, tried to think of ways to reach out, because I really thought I could help them in this situation. And then it seemed impossible to even get in contact with them, so I made a video about the topic, and then I actually ended up being able to speak with Arden himself, and he said to me, no, look, we've known about this exam since before we came to Russia, for a long time before we decided to sell anything and move here. We knew about the exam, we knew we'd have to take the exam. And I was thinking, well, if you knew about the exam and you knew that that was an important thing that you would have to do before coming to Russia, you knew that you would have to come here, and if you didn't take the exam you'd have to leave, why would you move your entire family to Russia knowing that and then not learn any Russian at all and prepare for the exam? And I was kind of like really pulling my hair out, thinking that this is a bit crazy. Why would you do that? I really just presumed that they didn't know about the exam. But anyway, it worked out that, you know, they were able to claim asylum and they were able to stay in Russia without actually needing to take the exam, which was very lucky for them, because obviously they were saying it was going to be really expensive. So it all kind of worked out in the end. But what it did, at the same time as being a bit reckless in my eyes, of, you know, why would you move to a country knowing that the only way to stay there would be to take a residence exam that you decided not to prepare for in any way? What it did was it highlighted an issue that almost all foreigners have had in Russia since I can remember. When I first came here 20 years ago, you would come here on a tourist visa and perhaps you wanted to stay, but your visa would expire and so you'd have to leave. Or you come here as a student and your student visa would expire and you'd have to leave. Or you come here on a business visa and your business visa would expire and you'd have to leave. And there was no way around it. In order to become a resident, you need to take the residency exam, and if you didn't speak Russian, you have to leave. There's no, well, you know, I've decided that I want to stay, but, you know, I'm not ready for the exam, can I stay anyway? They'd say, well, no. go home. There are loads and loads of foreigners right now in Russia that until a couple of weeks ago were, well, they were in that complete same situation themselves. They've been to Russia on a visa, visa's expired, have to leave, no choice. And what Countryside Acres have done is really highlighted this problem. I mean, they didn't highlight it deliberately, but they came here like everyone else who initially comes to Russia and obviously doesn't know the language. And they were going to have to leave. Now, they themselves obviously claimed that asylum and were given asylum, were allowed to stay, whereas almost all other foreigners have to leave. There's no choice, right? There's no way around that. They would have to leave. And so they've really created this awareness, I guess, to the problem that exists, that there's no real solution for people who perhaps want to move to Russia. They want to open a business, they want to do things, but they don't speak the language. And also how the residency quota works in Russia. If someone wanted to move to Russia and they wanted to become a Russian resident, they would need to go to the local immigration department and they would need to say, look, I would like to apply, and there's a certain amount of allocated spaces available. And it would really depend on the immigration officer there to look at you, look at your situation and decide, look, we've only got 200 places allocated this year for people who want to apply for residency. Do you fit the categories of people we're looking for? And if you don't, they'd say, sorry, not this year, perhaps try again another year. And that will be it. And you'd have to leave Russia and figure out how do I get back again if I want to get back again. So what law is it that Countryside Acres have hoped to change? Well, Russia have decided to scrap the immigration exam, the Russian language test and general knowledge exam for those people who want to apply for a 3-year temporary residency in Russia. This is massive. All the foreigners that are here now that usually have to leave once a year or whenever their visa finishes can now pretty much apply for temporary residency and stay in Russia. Also, there's no limit to the number of allocated spaces, which makes it incredible. So, in theory, you, if you've never even been to Russia, will now be able to get a temporary visa, come to Russia, apply for residency and stay here for 3 years without knowing any knowledge of Russian language or history or laws at all, which is a complete game changer. So until recently, the only types of visas you could use to come to Russia and stay in Russia until you apply for residency are student visa, where you are a student studying at a particular university, or you're on a work visa. And the work visa means you work for a specific company who have invited you to work. You can't change jobs and go and work for another company. That would mean your visa would need to be, scrapped and have a new one made by the new company. And so that really wasn't a great visa either. And then of course you've got the business visa. Now, business visa doesn't allow you to open a business in Russia. A business visa allows you to come on kind of like business travel, I guess, to maybe, attend business conferences or events or something like that. So really, there weren't really many good visas. Of course, the fiancé visa as well. If you're married, then you could get your 1-year visa to come and visit your spouse, but that's it really. And so if any of these visas expired, well, go home and renew them again, right? So Countryside Acres probably played a huge role in this law being changed. They came to Russia unprepared to take their exam. They moved their entire family here knowing that they, wouldn't be able to stay in Russia after 3 months because they hadn't learned Russian in order to take the exam. And they, made a video about it, but because their channel was a huge sensation, this has really brought awareness to the topic and to a subject that's been, something of real difficulty for all foreigners living in Russia for as long as I can remember. Now again, the reason that Countryside Acres were not ready to take the exam is because residency was never designed for people like Countryside Acres. Residency was designed for people who had already lived in Russia for long enough. They decided that it was going to be home and they knew the language enough already to take the exam and to pass and then gain residency. But because there's such a different world right now, okay? So many people are willing to move to a different country without ever even being there, right? They can see online what it's like. You don't need to, you know, go and visit somewhere perhaps to see what it's like first. You can move your whole family to a new country without even having visited. And so this is what happened with Countryside Acres. They came to Russia on a 3-month visa, and there was no way in the world they were going to be able to pass the residency exam. But by creating the video and highlighting this issue, they were able to show that there's something wrong with the system. There's something wrong with this. And now what's happened? The laws have changed. And so now, if you want to apply for residency, then there's a good chance that you'll be able to. And you won't have to take the Russian language exam, and you won't have to, you know, worry about there being a certain amount of places allocated, because the new laws have scrapped those entirely. So which countries are going to be on the list? Well, of course, we don't really know yet. But it's those countries that have, well, kind of progressive and liberal laws. And this is trying to attract people who, well, don't really want to live where they are, well, they don't really agree with the values, and they prefer the kind of traditional values that you can find in Russia. And for the residents of countries not on the list, well, you can still apply for residency, but unfortunately the old rules will apply for you. Now, there's a verse in the Bible that says, "Submit to the Lord in all your ways and he will make your path straight." And I think that Countryside Acres probably read that verse and believed in it before coming to Russia, because they knew that they weren't going to prepare for the exam, but they prayed and they thought, this is the right thing for us to do, and we're going to do it anyway. And everything's worked out well, hasn't it, for them? They didn't need to take the exam, and also at the same time they've highlighted this issue that foreigners have been facing in Russia for a long time, and now it's changing. So the chances are that because of Countryside Acres, you are now able to apply for residency in Russia. So if you're thinking of moving to Russia, then this is probably the right time for you. So how the temporary residency permit works is you have to come to Russia and then you can apply. That's how it's always been, and I think that's how it's going to stay. On the 1st of September, we're going to know the list of the countries that it applies for, and we're going to know a lot more about this topic. So I'd say sit tight, wait until the 1st of September when we know a lot more information. And then, yeah, you know, thanks to Countryside Acres, and I'm guessing probably thanks to Countryside Acres, you now have a better opportunity of moving to Russia and receiving residency.